Hello, everybody. Welcome to Football-Oranje. It's podcast 80. Now, something's a little bit different today. First thing you may notice is that if you are watching us on YouTube, I'm not only doing this live for a change, this podcast, but you can also watch us and see us, which is rare. We are doing a live podcast today, which is, of course, watchable back. We are also available on SoundCloud and iTunes as well. So let's see if you can help us reach 1,000 listens this time on this podcast, which is especially another way too. We've got a special guest. We've got Alex here. He's more commonly known as Euro Expert on Twitter. Alex, before we go into Dutch football matters, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm Alex. You might have known me as the Euro Expert. I tend to spam myself on YouTube, comments, Twitter, all over the place. Hopefully I don't ruffle your feathers too much. Basically, I try and bring the knowledge that you might not know because it gets undercovered to you guys and make it relevant enough so you don't get bored. So I'll hopefully be able to do that today because we're talking about Ligue 1 teams, which will be sometimes gets mocked a little bit. But I will try my hardest to make it as interesting as possible.
Brilliant. Well, Alex, I'm sure that you'll be full of knowledge, far more knowledge than I am anyway, because, I mean, as I was just saying before the podcast, I only just realised Lille were at the top of the Liga, so I am not a French football expert. Mike knows more than me. Mike's also here. He'll no doubt do his preview article before the matches on Ajax and PSV, the two teams we're definitely going to be talking about today. So we've definitely got Europa League preview coming up, Lille, Ajax, but also Olympiacos, PSV. And then we're going to delve into a little bit of Eredivisie. And finally, we're going to talk about Noah Long because Alex is also an expert on the Belgian League too. And he's also been pressing massively. And we really want to see him in a Netherlands shirt before too long. All right, first things first. Alex, Lille versus Ajax is coming up on Thursday. And I spotted something before the podcast which suggested to me that Lille might be playing their B-side, the top of Ligue 1. They might actually have a chance of winning the league for goodness knows how long. I don't know exactly how long. Again, I am not the French football expert, hence why you're here, Alex. However, Mike and I can definitely give a perspective on Ajax, and we've been watching them quite a lot. They've been playing all right. They've been winning a lot of games, but you wouldn't say it's vintage Ajax, and definitely not the Ajax that we've been seeing from that Champions League run in 2019.
Yeah, agree. Definitely on the Ajax thing. Whenever I've watched them this season, they've been like a bit more 7 out of 10. So if Lille weren't doing so good in the league, just as you were touching on, the idea that they could actually win their first league title since 2012, then I would actually put this as a surprising walk-off. Like it could genuinely be 3 or 4-0 Lille because they're in thumping form. To give a bit of context to them, so PSG started the season horrifically. They had about 12 COVID cases. They had 3 players get suspensions in 1 game. Lavin Kasawa got a 5-game suspension for drop kicking a Marseille player, which led Lille and Lyon to build a bit of a lead. Now Lyon are starting to fall away a bit, but Lille they're not. It's not just their points total haul that is suggesting they have what it takes to win this. For the last few games, they've been grinding their victories. They haven't been the classic line. They've not been playing well, but they've been getting over the line. And their manager, Christophe Gaultier, has been he's uncharacteristically emotional recently. After every goal, after every victory, going around hugging all of these coaching staff, which to me suggests, from a long time admirer of him and Ligue 1, that the focus really is right now on the Ligue 1 title. And as you pointed out there, might seeing something that Lille might put out their B team. However, the interesting thing about Lille is their B team is still good enough to play in the Europa League and win. I mean, just to touch on their group stage form, they beat Milan, I think it was 3-0, I believe, at home in France. Youssef Yazici got a hat-trick, I think. He absolutely demolished Milan. And Lille's B team players, there's players like Luis Araujo, Youssef Yazici, Timothy Vere, you guys might have heard of. They're playing really well at the moment, but they're just not getting into the senior side. And there's another player I think I want to touch on later. Burak Yilmaz is just coming back to form, and he is apparently a player they're really desperate to get in for this tie. But before I go into that, I guess, where do you guys are the Ajax watchers, Eredivisie watchers? I said I've watched them a couple of times. What do you say their biggest weaknesses? Because I want to see if Lille can exploit it. What do you see their biggest weaknesses in their team?
Well, I was going to pose it to Mike just now, actually, about how he thinks Ajax might approach the match, because this isn't a team that can really take on many European teams at the moment. It feels like they're not ready to compete in the Europa League last stages. It often ends in this when this feeling kind of happens. Do you sense as well, Mike, that we're getting to that point again where Ajax have kind of been faulting a little bit in the Eredivisie? They've had times where they can be vintage and win 4-5-0 against teams, but at the minute that's not really happening. You don't get that vibe about them at all that they're going to go out and impress in Europe like they have in recent years in the Champions League. And it just feels like they're about to crash out of Europe once again.
I wouldn't be so pessimistic about them. And to say that they're in sort of bad forms, I wouldn't say that either. I think they've won 8 on the bounce. So, I mean, I don't think Ajax coming into this game in bad form. I'd say they're not in the form that they were when they reached the semi-finals of the Champions League. They're not the same team as that, but still a team that can go to France and get a result. I mean, these are no mugs. This is Ajax we're talking about. It's not PSV. If it was PSV going to Lille, I'd be, frightened for them. But this is Ajax, good form. Sebastian Haller not being there is going to be a bit of a blow. But yeah, they'll revert back to playing with Tadic through the middle. And I think that whereas Lille have had strong games against the likes of Zlatan this season when Botman sort of marked him out of the game, Tadic is a different player. His movement might actually cause him some trouble. So you never know what he'll do against Lille over somebody like Haller, who's more of a target man. So I think, this Ajax side, I think is capable of definitely getting through. I think that Erik ten Hag's actually worked on some of their weaknesses in recent weeks. I think Alvarez has come into the team and he's started doing really well. We've seen Timber come in for scares and that sort of shored up the back line as well. I thought they were very professional at the weekend. I don't think they were great against Heracles, but they got a 2-0 win. Klaasen's coming into some form. He scored in 3 Eredivisie games in a row. They got Anthony, they got rested, come back into the team. You got Neres on the bench. You got so many players this Ajax team have that can cause so much damage to this Lille defence. So I wouldn't be too pessimistic about them. I'd probably make Lille favourites for this game, but I don't see it being a trance, and I can definitely see Ajax getting through if they play to their best.
Yeah, it feels like they're kind of overdoing some of their hoodoos. The fact that they can go to Heracles and win, they've not done that for a few years, and then they went and did that this time. They are winning games when they're playing badly. They've done 8 on the spin. That is amazing form. They've gone from being one of the favourites to win the league to being the strong, absolute clear favourites. It kind of works in Ajax's favour, then I guess, that they get to have this Europa League game now because they can go into it with the knowledge that they didn't have to rest too many players to have to focus on this game. They know that they can kind of go for both. And if they want to take out a player or two from the league, they can, because they can win those easier winnable matches, without them. But coming back to what Alex was alluding to there, the weaknesses, there are a couple too many young players in the team at the moment. I wonder whether Timber can be got out of centre-back because of his lack of experience at European level. It's not to say he's a fantastic talent, of course, because he is. But also, they've got players come back in midfield. I can't see that being an issue. It'll be Haller being missing up top. He is someone that they've definitely fed off recently. He has changed the way that they're playing. 5 goals, 5 assists in his opening 9 games. He's not really had a chance to really train with Ajax. There's been that many games. And he's just settled down immediately. So I think that's going to be the problem for Ajax. Do you see Lille kind of shaping up to play this kind of Ajax side that is going to be dynamic? They are going to try and use their pace and trickery to get around them. But also they can be got at with their centre-backs, particularly in terms of height. If there's a big striker for Lille, there's a chance there.
So some interesting points here. Firstly, I definitely want to touch on as well is Anthony, by the fact that you guys might, because you watch Eredivisie a bit more than me, you guys might scoff at this, but I think he's one of the best players I've seen play for Ajax in a while. But I imagine, from what I've heard, he can be a little inconsistent. But I think Lille's one weakness is their left-back slot. They've got depth all over the pitch, but their 2 left-backs are Bradaric and Renildo. They're okay. They're standard. Renildo wins about 70% of his tackles, which is a really good number. But neither of them get put in the first team too often. So if Anthony could cause havoc on the right-hand side, well, Lille's left-hand side, I think that's an outlet for creativity. But I think what Lille's biggest strength is, they're really good at either defending deep or with a high line. Botman and Font are deceptively quick. So I'm not sure about if Neres or Anthony, whoever plays the quicker players, they're going to have much fun getting in behind, or even Tadic, because the Lille defense is probably one of their best bits. They play in a 4-4-2 for context, a little like Atletico in a way. They're quite rigid in that sense. It's a bit like a blend of, if you guys watch the Premier League, a bit like of Southampton and Atletico. Really rigid in defense, but really free flowing in the attack. Can smooth into like a 4-2-2. But you were saying about the Ajax centre backs there, and I think that leads on really nicely to Lille's biggest strong point, which I mentioned would be Burak Yilmaz. Now, if you've played FIFA, you will remember this guy. The Turkish guy gets a team of the season every year. 35 years old. He's playing in Europe for the first time, and it's fair to say he's absolutely smashing it. He's got 9 goals and 4 assists in 15 starts. So really good numbers. But in a team that's quite young, like we've spoken about Botman, there's players like Renato Sanchez, Jonathan Okone. The average age is about 22. Yilmaz being 35. On the pitch, he's been a leader. Whenever a player's made a mistake, he's very quick to either scream at them or encourage them to get back. Every time he comes on the pitch, it's an immediate impact. And it's whether he is holding up the ball, he's really strong and very aggressive. Whether he's holding up the ball, bringing teammates into play, or actually making the runs in behind, he causes a lot of trouble. Now, Ajax's centre-backs, I don't know too much other than Schürrle. And from Schürrle, he's been a bit hit or miss. But if the Ajax centre-backs are not might struggle with experience or with a bit of a physical presence, then Yilmaz could cause a lot of damage, and it does seem like he's going to play. But just to quickly caveat as well, for Ajax's perspective, now, I think there's a really big bonus for them this game is the fact that Benjamin Andre's out. He's Lille's centre midfielder, and he puts up the most defensive numbers in the team. He's a bit like N'Golo Kante in a sense, not necessarily running around the pitch, but he is basically the brick wall in the Lille side, and he's suspended for this tie, as well as Xhaka, another midfielder. So they're going to be stuck with Sanchez and Boubakary Soumaré midfield, and neither of these two are really defensive. So, like I said, Lille are really well coached, and they've got a really good defensive setup. But if Ajax can get them in the same way that I know it was a while ago, but in the same way they did at Real Madrid a couple of years ago, when they were just able to run through their midfield, you can see Ajax definitely nabbing a goal. Like I said, like Michael was saying, you wouldn't write them off completely for this, no matter the off-the-field issues with Haller and things like that.
Yeah, I think that Ajax are going to definitely pose a bigger threat than they have in the last year or so in Europe. I think this is a nice game for them to really step it up again, given how they have that cushion in the Eredivisie. Like I say, I've got that vibe that it could be a crashing out of Europe. I wonder whether mentality could be a part, though, and if Erik ten Hag can get it right with his players. And it is a tricky squad to manage, that Ajax team, especially with the effects that Onana and Haller, that the 2 losses are going to have. Players like Tadic have got to step up. They've got to try and lead the side out for this one. Mentality has always been the biggest thing for Ajax when it comes to defeats. It seems as though they're their own worst enemy. And playing Lille could be an opportunity. And you talk about, Alex, that will to win. I wonder if that's a Liga mentality, given how they are going for the league. And this could be a bit of a distraction. This could be a bit of this is a nice match to play in, but it's not going to carry the same vigor. You know, if you're not going at, say, above 80%, you're not going to be playing at your best. I wonder whether this could be the case on the evening. Mike, do you see Ajax going into this 100% really wanted to go for it? Because, like I say, mentality can be their biggest problem.
Yeah, I think that Ten Hag will have them up for this game. I think that they're division are 6 points clear with a game in hand. So, Ten Hag probably looking at PSV's form, probably thinking that, probably not saying it out loud, but league title is pretty much theirs to lose at this moment in time. So I think the Europa League will be a big stage for them. And some of these players, it's Ajax, they know that this isn't their final stage of their careers. Players like Gravenberch and Alvarez and all these players, they want to impress so they can go to other clubs, and through the Europa League, that's their opportunity. So I think they'll be fired up for this game. I think leaders on the pitch, you're looking at Tadic to try and get everyone going again. Klaassen as well, and Daley Blind in defence. I think when you're talking about a weakness for Ajax, I think it is the mentality. Sometimes I think the lack of concentration, but that's usually in the Eredivisie. I think it's usually European games. And you saw when they did reach the semi-finals of the Champions League, it was their away form that was the one that drove them there because they were so hard to beat, and the way they countered with their pace. And I think it'll be the same in Lille as well. I think they'll set up with Tadic for the middle and Neres and Antony on the wings to get at Lille through the pace of the wingers. I think that might work. And then we've not even talked about Gravenberg as well.
I think he's suspended. I think
maybe
so.
Someone will have to quickly Google. I'll quickly Google.
Well, that'll be a big blow for them, because then the alternatives to come in would be a Kellenkamp or a Martinez or Labiad, and nobody wants Labiad to be playing in the squad at all. But yeah, I think that Ajax will see this game as probably their biggest one to come in the next few weeks. So I think that they'll be really fired up for this, and yeah, I'm excited to see it because I think it's going to be a really good game. As I said before, I think I can see the headlines have been Sven Botman comes back to haunt Ajax, and I think that Ajax fans are sort of dreading coming up against him because when you speak to Ajax fans on Twitter, they don't seem to believe that Botman's doing as well as he is. They always seem to think that whenever you see him linked to Liverpool, linked to £40 million moves, they always say, "Oh, he wasn't good enough for us. He wasn't good enough for us," but he never got a chance. You've seen what he's doing in France, and they always say, "Oh, he doesn't fit our playing style." I think that you see what he does for Lille and shutting down Zlatan in every single game. I don't think Lille have conceded a goal for hours and hours. So I mean, he's doing great. So I just don't get why Ajax fans just can't admit that he's one that got away. I think a lot of them see Noah Lang doing well in Belgium and like, "Oh, why do we let him go?" But you don't really see that for Botman. But yeah, I think he's got a bright future ahead, and I think he'll be in the next Netherlands squad as well. So I'm excited to see what he can do up against Ajax, because I think he'll have a big point to prove.
More on Noah Long a little bit later, and also the PSV game as well coming up in the Europa League. But just a few final points in this game. So the first one was Dusan Tadic. Now, who are the key players for you guys in this game, and do you see Dusan Tadic being a key man? I mean, given that he's probably going to have to play as a striker in this game, what have you made of his season this season, Mike? Has he been the Dusan Tadic that we know? For me, I feel like he goes a few games where he's outstanding, or he'll play a key role in one match, and then the next year he just don't really see him. He doesn't really stand out for very much.
Yeah, I was critical of him a few weeks ago when he played really badly, but then there was a game where he started on the bench and Ajax was struggling, and he came on in the second half and got a goal and an assist. So I think he is still the crucial man for Ajax. I think his goals, and because he had that first season when Ajax reached the semi-finals, and his goals and assist tally was incredible, and he's not really lived up to that. I don't know if he got linked to Barcelona that January. We was maybe going to go on loan to them. It didn't really work out. He stayed. But yeah, ever since then, he's probably not been the Dusan Tadic we saw in the first season. But he's still, I think, key for them. But the thing is, you need to get players around him. If he holds up the ball, he sets up attacks. It's up to Antony and Neres to support him, because he can't do it all on his own. If I was to pick a key man for this game, I'd say Antony. He needs to step up in the big games. He didn't do it in the Champions League. I think he needs to step up in Europa League. It's all well and good scoring in the Eredivisie, but you need to do it in games like this to move to the next level. And the other one I'd pinpoint is probably Stekelenburg in goal. He's been in there for 2 games, not really been tested so far. This will be the big one. If he's going to be the replacement for Onana, he needs to step up in these games, and hopefully he doesn't make any clangers, because I said it on Twitter a few weeks ago and it kind of got laughed at, but Netherlands don't have very many goalkeepers. If Stekelenburg comes in and plays 6 months as the first choice for Ajax and keeps clean sheet after clean sheet, he's probably going to the Euros. Something like that. So this is a big platform for him, and what a way to end his career. If in the summer, if Ajax go for somebody else, Stekelenburg ends up retiring, he could be going out on the back of a European Championships.
Let's not dream, eh? Could be lifting that trophy in the summer.
Scoring the winning penalty in a shootout in the final, yeah. We know it.
You heard it first here. You stole the words out of my mouth, Mike, about key players. I was going to ask you both who your key player is for the game. And I did search it. Gravenberch is going to be suspended. He did get 2 yellows and a red in that Atalanta game. It feels like so long ago now, back in time. Yeah, but he will be out of the game, unfortunately, which is going to be a big miss for Ajax. He's just been so good. You know when you earmark players for the future and you think they're going to be a top player in the future, they're going to be someone who really stands out, and you watch them at every age group, you think if they live for full potential, they're going to do it. And he has. At this age, he's probably surpassed what people expected of him. The fact that he can be one of Ajax's, if not the Eredivisie's best midfielders, best players, he's immense. But what he does on the pitch is going to be sorely missed because of the way he carries the ball, the way that he can win the ball back, the way that his vision is great. But I wonder whether this is a chance for Mohamed Kudus to come back into midfield. He did play a little role against Heracles. I wonder whether that's why Erik ten Hag threw him in. Maybe he thought, let's give him some minutes now. And even though it's early, maybe he could start against Lille. Without giving a full 11, of course, we do want to preview the key players of the game. So could I have from both of you who your key player is going to be for the game? I think Alex choose someone from Lille, perhaps, and might choose someone from Ajax. And could you both give us your predictions of the game? And perhaps over both legs as well, what you're predicting.
Okay, I'll go first. That's all right. So
yeah,
I've heard Michael said to me a few times that, and you just mentioned it, the Ajax fans come at you for saying Sven Botman's the one who got away. I just want to say, if any Ajax fans are listening and they're annoyed about what I'm about to say, go and direct your hate to @EuroExpert_ on Twitter and follow me after. But Sven Botman is the key player because he's not just a superb defender. He's an incredibly important player in Lille's team. And just for the record, he was benched at the weekend. So that was the first time he's been benched in a very long time, which means he will start this game. Now, Botman is a really strong and fast defender. So I'm not going to focus too much on getting passing because I feel like everyone's focused on him enough about that. It's how integral he is to Lille's play. So I mentioned they're a bit like Southampton, right? They like to pass vertically and get directly at teams. They like to drive straight at the heart of their defense. Now, Botman has, in his own half, I found this an interesting stat. I've got a couple of ones. So in his own half, he's got a 96% pass accuracy. Quick thing, guys, as well. It took Sven Botman 8 games to misplace a pass in Ligue 1, like of any length, long ball, short ball, and it took him 8 matches of full 90s. So it's not just he's very, very efficient with the ball. He's also incredibly important getting it forward. He's, I think, second in Lille's side for passing the ball into the final third and then into the penalty box, or something like that. Second was like a midfielder. So he's really important at getting the ball forward. And I think with that, he will be a player they need to press and they need to mark very carefully. Because if you give him too much time with the ball, he will either hit a crossfield pass that goes straight to Bamba or Ikone, or he'll slip one straight through the middle to Yilmaz who'll be able to build off of it. And before I finish, my anti-key player for Ajax is Davy Klaassen. If you get counter-attacked, he might get sped past by all of Lille's team.
And what's
he's not
the game?
Sorry? So he's not the fastest anymore, so it's always a risk.
Yeah.
And what's your prediction for the game, Alex?
A prediction. Put me on the spot. I'll be quick. I'm going to go with 2-1 Lille in the home leg. And I mean, yeah, I'll say Lille go through 3-2 over 2 legs.
Fair. Mike?
Yeah, so I've already touched on it, but key players, Anthony on the wing, Tadic for the middle, and then Stekelenburg in goal. I think that this is the one where Ajax need to try and keep it as tight as possible, and Stekelenburg has to be the leader at the back with Daley Blind and try and keep out Lille as much as possible. So I'm going to say that he's the key man because everyone will probably be looking at him thinking he's not a nana. Let's try and get him to make a clanger. So he needs to be on top form. Try to be positive. I think that Ajax can get there and get a score draw. I think that would be incredible for them. A 1-1 draw in France. And then it's hard because we've seen it in the Champions League home games, crucial home games. Ajax usually slip up. They've done it the past few years in the Champions League. But let's be positive and say that they're going to do it and they'll win 2-1 in Amsterdam to go through.
Very positive indeed. I'm going to go with a very pessimistic 3-1 Lille. Unfortunately, I think that the Ajax centre-backs have not yet been tested enough at a high enough level this season. And when we did watch Ajax 2, PSV 2, PSV got behind that Ajax defence and created lots of chances. The two strikers, the 4-4-2 might not suit Ajax. The 4-4-2 for PSV, we had Zahavi and Marlon having a great time, creating loads of chances, linking up really well, lots of flicks, lots of tricks. And I just think that Lille are going to carry that quality again, and they're going to cause some big problems. And over the two legs, it could well be that Ajax play much better in Amsterdam, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So I am unfortunately pessimistic, but I think that this is going to be Ajax walking the league, but again struggling in Europe, and big questions will be asked of Erik ten Hag, even if he does win the league and cup double. Any final points in the game? Because I feel like we need to start talking about PSV.
What was that, sorry?
Any last points about the game before we talk about PSV?
Tell you, I think we've hit on everything. I'm ready to go into PSV.
PSV, it's a very different kettle of fish because it is, first of all, a weaker opponent than Lille that a Dutch team is facing. But PSV have not been great. They've had games like the one against Ard at the weekend where they had all the chances, 34 shots, I think it was, but only 2 goals to show for it. And clumsy mistakes have led to goals against. That is probably going to be PSV's biggest problem in Europe. They've got Marlon in the team. He's playing some fantastic football, but there's a lack of attacking midfielders that are fit, and Mohit Taran has not been playing that great either. So now you're in a situation where PSV are going to rely on their strikers again to come up with the goods, and they're going to try and keep it tighter at the back than they have been. What are your first thoughts in the game, Mike? And can PSV really have a run in Europe? I felt early in the season that this could have been possible and they could have gone deep into competition. And now I'm pessimistic about PSV too.
Yeah, I think if there's one manager that's under pressure in the Eredivisie, it's Roger Schmidt. Especially after the weekend, everyone's taking pop shots at him. I think Ibrahim Afellay was very scathing on him yesterday, and the Kirchhoff brothers are coming out as well and having goes at him. Everyone's calling ref right and centre for Tunga Bronze above him to have a word with him, because they're getting a bit sick of his tactics and a bit sick of his blame game of officials and VAR and looking at everyone but himself. And yeah, I think Schmidt right now is the biggest problem, because I think that a bit of ego is coming in. So after the Ajax game, that they criticised that he took off Ajax, who was the best player on the pitch, and he said, well, he's no Messi. I don't think he played very well. Then he saw against Den Haag that Ajax was dropped to the bench, and Ryan Thomas came into 11 with Vertessen, who had never started in Eredivisie before. Then they go and draw 2-2 against Den Haag. So yeah, it's not going very well for him. I think that the problem is that his setup's just not working. Without Cody Gakpo or Götze, this doesn't work. And when you're playing average Eredivisie teams, why do you need 2 defensive midfielders in Sangare and Rosario? It just doesn't work, and they offer absolutely no protection to the defence. And we've seen it in Europe, and we saw PAOK in Greece absolutely tear PSV apart, even though they had 4 defenders and 2 defensive midfielders. This doesn't work, but he's going to stick with it. We'll see how it works against Olympiacos, and that's why I'm fearful, because if Gakpo and Götze are out still, they didn't play the weekend, went on the bench, and Schmidt continues with his love for Ryan Thomas, then Olympiacos will probably pick this team apart. You can't rely on Malin to do it all himself, because he is basically doing it all himself at the moment. He hit the bar twice, scored twice. I don't know why he doesn't take the penalties, because Philip Max guided his one. I think he's really the only shining light right now for PSV. And yeah, I'm a bit fearful going into this game.
He just seems stubborn, doesn't he, Schmidt? Stubborn and really critical of everything at late. He isn't showing much tactical knowledge to the extent that we saw at the start of the season. People were kind of going, "Oh, the 4-2-2-2 it's quite interesting for the league. It's making opponents think." And it seems as though teams have just found PSV out now, and they are really making the most of these 2 defensive midfielders who do very little. Sangare, I think, is a good player and perhaps could make a very good defensive midfielder if he's playing as one by himself. But there's very little going on from players such as Thomas. I really don't know why he's getting to the team. I really don't. I don't get why there's not a PSV Youth Academy product going over him in the team. Why couldn't it have been Vitesse and Anthony Hurtado? And why has it got to be Thomas as well getting into the side? It's bizarre. And Denzel Dumfries, for example, was the latest player to not play well. And at least Schmidt was consistent. At least he dropped him. At least he had the bravery to drop Dumfries. But it's still that the problems persist and the bad run is not ending. You have to say that PSV were unlucky not to beat Ardo, but the defensive errors were there plain as day, and you can't let them score 2 goals from 2 little mistakes like that. It wasn't good enough. And I come back to the point that it's going to be a really poor evening for them in Europe if they play like that again. And we have already seen in Europe already them play a Greek side. You touched upon it there, Mike. Plain Park, 2 goals down. I think it was at half time. Or there were 2 goals down. But then PSV did win 3-2. It was a great turnaround because Schmidt lost his rag with the players. But I wonder if he does that now, whether he's going to get the same response from his squad, because he's not had some good decisions recently. His squad might start to lose a little bit of respect for him if he's going to just keep being critical all the time of this, that, and the other, rather than the opposite, rather than being positive, rather than being critical of himself even. It's starting to feel a little bit rocky at PSV.
Yeah, I think that it's going to come to a head with Ajax, and I think for me right now, I see him leaving in summer. He's not going to sign a new contract because
Especially
why would he? If Ajax want him and he's been flirting with Ajax, then if he's going to get a game there, then why not? Because I think I can see it happening that him and Schmidt are heading for a big fallout, and it's PSV that are going to lose out because Ajax, he's up there with Gravenberg in terms of talent, and if Ajax sell him, they're going to get 40-50 million for him. If Ajax goes in the summer, PSV are going to get next to nothing. So yeah, it's a strange one because PSV aren't going to sack Schmidt, but he's not going to change. So it's sort of just going to go around in circles.
What are your thoughts on the whole situation, Alex? Have you watched PSV much this season, or have you been more inclined to watch Olympiacos?
I haven't watched much Olympiacos, but I know enough of them. But I've got to say that I was just listening to all of that quite in shock. I've watched PSV a lot this season because as soon as Roger Schmidt came through the door, I thought it was a really interesting move for the Eredivisie, and I was quite excited to see what he would do. And I've watched PSV a number of times this season, and I've watched them mostly before. I mean, you guys are the experts clearly, and you guys will be able to confirm. I watched them a lot. I think the last game I watched was when they drew with Ajax, and then they lost to AZ Alkmaar, which was billed as like that was just like, PSV, what are you doing? How can you do? They did very well against Ajax for large parts of the game, and then you go to AZ and you get thumped 3-1, I think it was. And I think
it's Feyenoord, yeah.
Feyenoord, yeah. And they
did lose to AZ as well, though. It was a pretty poor month for them because they had that draw with Ajax, which was a good, decent result, if you like. And then the home defeat to AZ, and then they lost away to Feyenoord.
Yeah, I remember watching the game against Ajax and thinking, yeah, this is coming together. And I think their large problem has been inconsistency, just because I watched them some games, I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. But then what you guys are saying is it doesn't work. I have felt that too. It doesn't feel like the players sometimes... It's a bit like how Chelsea were under Lampard in the last few weeks, where it felt like the players had only just moved into the same team together. Like I wasn't seeing you saying like the movement you want to see. They're not prying defenses apart. It kind of felt like a little like Marlon and Gakpo were getting put onto the pitch and said like, please just win the game in a sense. Yeah. And I think leading into that for Olympiacos. So Olympiacos, a bit of context, they don't have to care about their Greek Super League. They're 13 points clear. They're going to win it. And while their team it's not exciting, their top scorer is Yusuf El Arabi, a 34-year-old who used to play for Granada, is 17 goals in the league, and he hasn't scored in the Champions League. Their manager, I had for a long time, his name is Pedro Martins. He's got a 68% win rate for Olympiacos. Yes, I did just read that off Wikipedia, but it's not just all from looking at a screen. I remember the game against Arsenal and a couple of other highlights in the Champions League and the Europa League. They're a very well coached side, and maybe they're not going to overwhelm PSV. They're not going to produce an attacking performance that blows them away. But what they will be is frustrating, and I think that'll be a big test for, like what you guys are saying, for Schmidt and PSV. is if they can put what seems to be a lot of tumultuous circumstances behind the scenes to bed and dispatch of a frustrating team, then great, they're going to build on this. But from what you guys are saying, this and what I have seen from different parts of them when they've, I guess, struggled to unlock a defence at times, unless it's been like a sort of lucky through ball down the channel, this could be a sort of game which gets underneath them. PSV are clear favourites, don't get me wrong, but you never know, I think maybe this could be right game, wrong time.
Possibly. Or it could be the turnaround, but it just depends how Schmidt plays it. It's quite important for him this game in a way. It's kind of down to him to get the players on his side and to get them to perform, to get past this side in Europe. Simple as that. Especially if they're so far behind down the league. This kind of situation in the league kind of suits PSV. They should be favourites to finish second place, but the league is quite far away now. And Ajax can go from the point of view of, oh, well, we haven't won the league, but we're quite far ahead, so we can give it a go for now. And PSV can have an opinion of, well, we're not going to win the league, so let's give the Europa League a go. Schmidt did want to compete on all fronts. He's out of the cup, so the Europa League is his only avenue to have success. He's not going to win the Europa League, but he wants to go as far as he can. I think that a frustrating side is probably going to suit PSV, but against Ola Den Haag at the weekend, the 2-2 draw. So let's see whether they can actually put their chances to bed this time and keep it tight at the back, which they didn't do last time. If they can keep it tighter this time, maybe that's only one thing that needs to change them. And the two defensive midfielders might actually work here if you're playing a higher quality team like Olympiacos. But they're not by any means better on paper than PSV, despite the fact they're top of the Greek league. I did also notice that they've got, if you're an Eredivisie diehard fan, you might notice that they've got Marius Ruzai in the squad. He used to play for Villeneuve, but I don't think he's a regular starter or anything. Are you aware of the top players for Olympiacos, Alex?
Yeah, so like I said, they've Yusuf El Arabi. He scored. Don't quote me on it for certain, but I believe he scored the winner against Arsenal last year when they famously got knocked out. And they've got a couple of sort of the failed wonder kids around. So they've got Bruma. I think he even played for PSV as well.
He's on loan from PSV,
yeah. So I'm not sure. Maybe that means he's cup tied. Maybe he can't play against them. They've got Jan Villa, another veteran, I believe, and Matteo Valbuena. So they've kind of gone to the retirement home and collected a lot of aging stars. But Pedro Martinez has made it work before, so he could make it work again. But I just wanted to quickly, you're talking about Ibrahim Sangare, just to quickly touch on him in terms of who you're saying he's like the two defensive midfielders. I feel like next season, just to quickly say, you might see a big turnaround from him. The team you probably saw him move from Toulouse last season. Toulouse were one of the worst teams I think I've ever seen watching football in my entire life. They won one game, and in their curtailed season, it was in October, and they lost. They went on a 13-game losing streak. And Sangare's role wasn't necessarily, so you've got to break up play and help build up the team. It was more, can you please hold back the sea while we're getting demolished by every single team in France? So I think he's adapting from a really, really like defensive team that's run over to a more attacking one. So I think he needs that extra year, but then next season you might see the best of him.
No, that would be good. He has developed a lot this season already. At first, he was making mistakes, and now he's actually one of PSV's better players. I wonder whether next season, again, like you say, he developed further. Southampton were a team that were going to sign him, weren't they? And he actually turned them down in favour of PSV, probably because he knew he was going to play more games. But yeah, let's talk about predictions for this one then. This is a different one to the Lille Ajax game. It feels like PSV do have more of a chance. And when this came out of the hat, I was like, oh, great. PSV have actually got a chance getting through this one. Because Olympiacos are a good side, but PSV are better. They're a better quality team. They've got some fantastic footballers. Daniel Marlon, surely believing this summer, he's already too good for the Eredivisie. Who would like to go first?
Go on, Michael.
I mean, I want to be positive again. It's hard to be positive about PSV at the moment, but as you say, Daniel Marlon's there. I think he'll definitely score. So try to be a bit more positive. I'll say it's a 2-2 draw. I'll say PSV are winning for quite a while. Then Olympiacos will nick it, and everyone will blame Smith for making silly substitutions.
Oh, it sounds like a really painful evening for Dutch football all over again. This just sounds like one of those nights that Thursday night, round of 32. Come on, Ajax. Come on, PSV. and then they just both disappoint yet again. What about you, Alex?
It's the first leg in Holland, or I'm not sure about
Greece.
It's in Greece.
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know what will happen in each tie, but I think one of them will be a 0-0, and PSV are going to go through by 1 goal. I don't think Olympiacos have what it takes up front. I think PSV have the antidote to Olympiacos' rigidity, like Marlon, like Gakpo, creative players who will be direct and disrupt a low-sitting defence.
I'm also going to be quite positive on this one in terms of PSV. I'm going to go as far as a 2-0 win for PSV, but I think this might just paper over the cracks. It could still be nearing the end for Schmidt, but maybe not just yet. There's definitely one more big topic we should talk about this time. We have focused too much on the Netherlands national team recently, but that will certainly ramp up as the Euros are getting closer. And one player who Alex has certainly been watching, and I know Mike has too, is Noah Long, who's been ripping it up in the Belgian top division. He left Ajax, like Botman, and has thrived elsewhere. But with Noah Long, I felt more positive than Botman that he was going to make it at Ajax. I was gutted he wasn't given a chance, particularly with Promes not performing this season, that this was a chance for Long. Maybe because he was earmarked for playing on the right wing and it was Anthony's position and it was his time to come in and take that. But Long could have been playing anywhere across that front three. And it's just what a waste. What a waste. Alex, first of all, could you fill us in on what you've been seeing for him this season in Belgium? And then we'll talk more about his Netherlands aspirations.
So I'll be completely open with Noah Long. So there was another player at Club Brugge, who I was a bit more interested in earlier in the season, a guy called Crepin Diatta, who's moved to Monaco. Now, I've seen Noah Long, though, explode a bit more recently. He got a really nice goal and assist at a recent match. I can't remember exactly who against. I'll make sure I get it up now for some listeners. It was against Standard Liège. Yeah, he had a really nice dribble up the byline in a similar way to Pedro Neto did for Wolves at the weekend, if anyone saw that. Really, really exceptional play. And when I saw this, I was thinking, this is a great January signing for Bruges. And then I realised he's got 11 goals in, I think, 16 appearances. And I think that rather than saying he's gone under the radar, I think this is more about the fact that recently he's going to explode because Noah Long plays a bit more off the right-hand side, right? And that's where the previously mentioned Diatta was positioned, and he was much more of a main starter than Lang. But now Noah Lang can thrive in the empty void that's been left, and he's got 4 goals in the last 3 appearances with 1 assist. And for a bit of context as well, they've been against some decent sides. Against Standard Liège, they're a really tough, boring side, like the Crystal Palace of Belgium. Against Cercle Bruges, who are a bit more like a PSV, a bit inconsistent at times, but talented as well. He's been impressing. And I know as well that the Belgian league might get written off, right? I mean, you guys have to deal with it every time you talk about Dutch players. It's only the Eredivisie, but both leagues are pretty tough, and the Belgian league is really physical. So the fact that Lang's been impressing there shows a lot about a player who, if he was to move to another league, he wouldn't just be simply one who's just not good, he's going to underperform. He could actually make quite a big dent. And Belgium have been producing some good players as of late. I said Diatta, Jonathan David, Jeremy Doku. So he's in a really good proving ground and he's doing very well.
Mike, is he ready for Oranje though?
Yes, I think so. But the problem is Frank de Boer and the games that are coming up. So, Netherlands are playing in March, start of World Cup qualifiers. But at the same time, the Under-21 European Championships gets underway. So that might curtail his debut for now because they might think of sending him to the Under-21 Championships instead. And then we might see Ryan Babel again up front because he's actually come into some form for Galatasaray. So let's all hang our heads in shame at what's going to happen and Babel's going to be in the squad again. I think he is ready for Netherlands. I've said it before that what Netherlands lack, other than Memphis Depay, is somebody that will pick up the ball and just take it at defenders, and that's what Noah Lang will do. His goal the other day against Standard Liège, which was talked about, was him dribbling with the ball into the box and scoring. Netherlands players don't do that. You see what Steven Bergwijn's become at Tottenham, or you got Ryan Babel, Quincy Promes can't run, Calvin Stengs can't really run with the ball. The Netherlands don't have that. They don't have that direct player that just pick it up at halfway line and just run with it. Except for Memphis Depay, that's what Noah Lang would bring to Netherlands side. It'd be an exciting player to get fans off their seat when the European Championships comes around. But then you've got legends coming out left, right, and centre saying it's too early for him. We need to give him more time. I mean, what more can he do? He's scoring goals left, right, and centre in a good league. We saw it before. We saw Dan Juma get called up after a couple of good goals for Club Brugge, and he's now playing for Bournemouth in the Championship. So I think Noah Lang's got more potential than he does, and I don't see why he doesn't get a call up. Again, I think that European Championships might stop that, but I'd love to see him as soon as possible in the Netherlands. 11 him and Haravenberg and Botman, they all deserve their debuts. Cody Gakpo as well. These are all players that should be coming in because they're more exciting than what Quincy Promes brings, or Ryan Babel brings, or Luke De Jong brings. These players, get rid of them and get the fresh young ones in, and we'll see some excitement come into the side. Again, problem is that you got to keep your big personalities happy. Memphis Depay is good friends with Quincy Promes. He's good friends with Steven Bergwijn. That might be an issue, but we'll see what happens. But I think that Noah Lang for now will be in the under-21 squad.
The Netherlands need players who are in form. You go into a Euros competition, you want players who are just performing for their side, and if that's for AZ, if that's for Bruges, if that's even if Dan Juma was ripping up in the Championship, you'd say that he deserves a call up, but he's not. And there seems to be this thing about attacking midfielders in particular, wingers, attacking midfielders for the Netherlands, that quite recently there's been players in form, players who could play for Oranje, and then they have, for whatever reason, have just not gone to fill that or keep it up, be consistent. Calvin Stengs is the most recent example of that. And I fall in love with Stengs, and then I kind of distance myself from him. And Mike, you've kind of always really rated Stengs, and even through thick and thin, players do of course do this. They go slowly further up and up. But Stengs, it's not felt like that. He's kind of fallen flat again. It's like he's back to square one almost. He came out and was an amazing player in the Eredivisie for RZ, and he's not exciting me anymore.
Stengs is one of the most frustrating players. I remember a few years ago when I was first getting into football, Lionel Messi was the best player in the world. And I was like, great, I'm going to watch him. I'm going to be entertained. And just like with Stengs and Messi, every single time I watch them, I think this is going to be great. They have a complete shocker, and he doesn't do anything. And then I'll take a break the next weekend, and he'll get 2 goals. And it's so frustrating for someone who doesn't get to watch the Eredivisie every week.
I think mentality is his biggest problem at the minute. He just sort of like waltzes around, and he just lays a little pass, and actually now I really fancy it. We've got 65 minutes in, we're 2-0 down. I'm gonna put one in top bins, and then that'll be it. Again, it's back to being lazy. He's not coming back. He's not defending. And that's how I feel about Stengs at the minute. I've just got this overriding feeling about him that he's just not going to step it up enough to play, say, top of Serie A, perhaps the Bundesliga or the Premier League. He's going to be someone who probably ends up at Olympiacos in 5 years' time. He's just going to be there for the money and scores a few goals in the Greek League, and that could be it. I really hope I'm wrong, and I can watch this back in 2 or 3 years' time and think, wow, that was ridiculous. You were wrong. But it could be the case while we're doing Stengs that they end up like that, just because I don't feel like they're giving it their all for their development. Now, I have been completely harsh, Mike. Please can you balance the view?
Say that Stengs got a goal on Sunday, and Stengs got a goal and assist yesterday, and I named him in our player of the week, team of the week. So, and that was him getting moved back to the right wing because Pascal Jansen's been playing him as a number 10 in recent weeks, and put him back on the wing at the weekend, and he scored and assisted and looked good again. So maybe they just need to pick a position for him. Maybe it's still on the right wing, let him stay there, and then develop that way. But I think, you're right. The attitude is the main problem. I think that I've discussed Stengs before. When he first burst into the scene, he was like Arjen Robben. You'd run at you, you'd cut inside, you'd shoot, you'd be so all action. And then he broke his leg, and now when you see him, he picks up the ball, and then he'll stand there with it, and he won't take anyone on. He won't dribble with it. I don't know if it's a bit of fear, players that get a really serious ankle injury or break the leg. I don't know if they then decide that they don't want to run past players in case it happens again. I don't know if that's what's happening with him, but he just seems to be so static these days. Sometimes he does bring it, like he brought it yesterday, and AZ's win. But yeah, I think that he's not doing what we all thought he would do this season. Same with Boadu. I thought, coming into the season, them two were going to be tearing it up for AZ, and neither of them have. But yeah, I've still got high hopes for Stengs. I've got higher hopes for Stengs than I do for Boadu at the moment. But yeah, we'll see when it comes, because maybe Stengs just thinks he's done all he can at AZ. He needs that next move, but I can't see him going anywhere except for a mid-table side, whereas last year he was getting linked to the likes of Barcelona. So I can't see that at the moment. I can see him going to maybe mid-tier, Premier League, mid-tier, Serie A, and then see where he goes from there. But yeah, I think there's more to come from him. I just want to see him getting back to that level that when he first showed, where I thought, wow, this is a Netherlands superstar coming through.
You see, on the other hand, for me, Turncoat Miners has kind of switched with Stengs in my mind about who the best player is at RZ now, and Coat Miners every game. I'd say to Alex, or anyone else listening, that if you want to watch RZ, watch Turncoat Miners, because he is consistent pretty much every game. I'm going to go as far as say it's an 8 out of 10. He is that good, and I think that he could really play for a European top team. He was linked with the likes of Fulham before. I really hope it doesn't happen again. I even don't want to see him in a mid-table Premier League team. I think that he can be better than that. He's got to be given faith, though. I don't think that he wants to be on the bench for 6 months or a year, like Danny van der Beek is. Poor guy. That he could really play for a top team and be an excellent performer. Maybe the Premier League isn't the place for him. Maybe he should try Serie A first and really make for a name for himself there, like Matthias de Ligt has done. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see who makes it into this Netherlands squad, and over the coming weeks and months. I know that on Football-Oranje, we're definitely going to be looking at who can be in and out of that squad and in that starting 11. But all the time, the names are changing. But attacking midfielders and strikers are going to be the most interesting topic point. Also, who's going to play in defence now that Van Dijk's most likely not going to be playing at the Euros. Those kind of things are certainly discussions that we are yet to have. But there's only 3 matches to play before the Euros start, unless there's an extra friendly shoved in there before the tournament. Because there's only three qualifiers to play around the end of March, which will determine the squad. And Frank de Boer is not a very interesting person for choices, and I don't think that he's going to do anything exciting. It's going to be the same old boring choices. Yeah, let's see then. Noah Long is one of those players who, if he keeps it up, probably be in that squad, particularly in March. I mean, if you can impress in that Turkey game, that's the trickiest game of a lot that they're going to play out of those 3, then he will be in the squad for the summer. The other one that's really interesting me is Wout Weghorst. Again, he is not selected for the Netherlands. Was for a little bit. Uses the pinch hitter. Not much more than that. But he's now one of the top scorers in the Bundesliga. Why would you turn that down? If you're a top scorer in the Premier League, you'd say straight away, or be in the squad. Good question, Mike. Why is he not in the squad?
Ask Frank de Boer. I keep if you see Brian Babel's in there and Luke de Jong's in there and Wout Weghorst isn't, I don't know. Need to ask Frank that. But yeah, I think that the problem is that Luke de Jong always pops up with an odd goal here and there.
That Europa League final has basically given him a squad place, believe it or not.
And the goal against Northern Ireland, that game that they won 2-1, where he just sort of knocked in, at the back post on like 3 times. Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of thing that they want him for. So, I mean, you got to think that something's going on with Wout Weghorst. I don't know if he acts weirdly when he gets into the Netherlands squad. I don't know if around other players he doesn't interact with them. I don't know, but there's got to be a reason why, if you're sitting 3rd or 4th in the top goal scorer list in the Bundesliga, scoring in Europe, that you don't get a call up, especially when Netherlands don't have any strikers. There's got to be something that's not just, we prefer Luke de Jong. It's got to be something else that's behind it, and we're probably never going to know that.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing I was looking at. Just the fact when a few weeks ago, me and my friend were doing a podcast. We were doing a Euro 2021 podcast, and we were tackling the Netherlands, and we were doing a detailed like position by position. I got to striker, and I was like, all right, so we got Luc de Jong. Hell, isn't Weghorst Dutch? And I asked you guys because I, like you were saying, Michael, I genuinely just assumed something's happened, and it's like it's common knowledge that he's not allowed to play or something like that because he's like an elite striker and he doesn't play. It makes no sense to me.
It's almost too late to throw him in now and do that. It just says it all that Ryan Babel will be going to the Euros because he's been in the squads the whole way through. Frank de Boer's not going to change that now. He's not going to just take him out of the squad because he is someone that the players like, and apparently he's a leader in the dressing room. So is Kevin Strootman. How on earth is he still around the squad?
Oh my God.
It's like a bad smell. It's like you can't take him off the list. He's just hanging around and you can't get rid of him. But he will be going to the Euros somehow. But it's not going to be a revelation like Dirk Kuyt playing at like left wing back, which Louis van Gaal managed to do before. There's not going to be anything like that. It's not looking good for the Euros. But we can still get very excited about it. But there's going to be some strange choices in that squad, and I do worry if there's no attacking midfielders that are going to be in form.
Well, that's just predicting a Ryan Babel right back at the Euros scoring a winner in the final, or scoring the goal to take it into extra time for Stick Allenberg to win it on penalties. But yeah, I think the choices that Frank de Boer is going to make we're going to be disappointed left, right, and centre because Joey Veerman's probably not going to be there. Koop Meiners will probably not get a game. Botman will probably get dropped for Daley Blind in the centre defence. You know, it's going to be one of these sort of tournaments where Frank de Boer is going to play it safe with the safer choices, the Babels, the Strootmans, the ones that we don't want to see, and at the detriment of the ones that we do want to see, like Joey Veerman and Noah Lang and Sven Botman. But you know, it could be proved wrong. Frank de Boer might turn around and be like, right, I'm going to do it my way. You know, this is Koeman's squad that he's taken over, but yes. We'll see. I'm still optimistic the Euros is going to be good. You know, the group stage, 3 easy games for Netherlands. You know, we've got Memphis Depay in good form. There's players in really good form. It's just, we'll see. I'm still optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. So with that does it for today, I think. I think we should say a big thanks to Alex for joining us in this podcast. Of course, do appreciate it, the Euro knowledge that you do carry, and if Ajax and PSV make it further, do hope that you could join us again, depending on who they're playing, of course. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening and continuing to watch this podcast. As we're going for a full hour now. Thanks for giving us an hour of your day. Please do give us a big like if you enjoy these podcasts and what we do. We, of course, on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes, so do give us a like and subscribe on those platforms too if you can. Now, there will be more podcasts coming up soon, particularly on the Netherlands in the build-up to Euros, but much more as well coming up in the Eredivisie, the Europa League too, if Ajax and PSV can still get going. And, of course, if you do enjoy what we do, you can still support us by buying a Football-Oranje wristband. I have left the link to these in the description. They're like this. I've still got oh, that's not the camera. There it is. See, it's not too late to get one of those. We are running out of them, though. But thank you very much if you have already got one or if you wish to buy one this time. Anyway, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Alex. And speak to everyone soon.